Thank you. So good evening, everyone, and it's on? It's not coming through? Okay, it is on. Nobody else's microphone is on? Okay, so I'll start again. We thought the microphone wasn't working, but good evening, everyone, and welcome to this West Lincoln Council meeting. This is meeting number 5. Today is Monday, February 24th, and before I start, I want to welcome our new Director of Community and Protective Services, Cynthia Summers. Cynthia's had a long day. She was here first thing this morning, and she's been in and out of meetings all day since. So we're glad that you're still here and had an opportunity to meet members of council. So we have Gainsborough Public School for the first time tonight providing O Canada. So please stand if you're able. You love it. So each of the 3 elementary schools that have presented in the last little while have done it a little differently, so that was most enjoyable as well. Hopefully their parents saw that they were on the agenda and were watching. If not, they'll make sure that they know that they were used in tonight's meeting. So before beginning the council meeting, I'd like to provide the following announcements. The public may submit comments for matters that are on the agenda to jpaylove@westlincoln.ca before 4:30 on the day of the meeting. Comments submitted will be considered as public information and read into the public record. And this meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded and will be available on the Township's website. So as always, we'll start our meeting with the land acknowledgement statement. The Township of West Lincoln, being part of Niagara Region, is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Wendourong, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Township of West Lincoln, as part of the Regional Municipality of Niagara, stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. And Councillor Maychuk, you have the opening petition this evening.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. We gather to make decisions for our community. May we use only our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial and neutral as we consider the merits and pitfalls of each matter that is placed before us, and always act in accordance with what is best for our community and our fellow citizens.
Thank you, Councillor. Members of Council, are there any changes in order of items on the agenda for this evening? And seeing none, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and/or conflict of interest? Okay. So item 6 on our agenda is always the opportunity for members of the public to address items that are on the agenda. They are restricted to specific items as follows. There shall be no comments from the public permitted at council unless A, a specific appointment has been scheduled, or B, an item is included under the other business or communications or appointments sections of the agenda and relates to a matter which would normally be dealt with at the committee. Are there any members of the public present who wish to address a specific item on the agenda this evening? And seeing none, Kevin, is there anyone online?
Not seeing any, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. There are no appointments or presentations this evening, so Regional Councillor Witteveen, that brings you up right quickly in the meeting tonight. So we missed you the last meeting while you were on vacation, so welcome back. We're glad to have you back this evening. it's
Thank you,
working.
Madam Mayor, and yes, it was nice to have a break. So I'd like to start this evening, members, Mayor, members of council, staff, and members of the public. I'd like to start with a couple of traffic safety updates. First, many of you seen or experienced the four-way stop at Park Road in Mud Street. With this much-needed improvement, we have seen a much safer and predictable intersection for our residents traveling back and forth to the QEW and to home. Secondly, there's been an equal, if not greater, concern at Highway 20 and South Grimsby Road 18 in the hamlet of Fulton. Many of you know we've experienced a number of collisions at this intersection, and in working with the Niagara Regional Transportation Department, we are moving forward with a signal placement at this intersection in the near future. There is a process that needs to be followed as per design, and where to place the signal, and it needs to be included in our budget. I'm aware of this has urgency, but a process needs to follow before it's installed and functional. I'll be discussing with the mayor on how we may address safety here in the short term at this location. And lastly, we have received data from our automated speed enforcement program in our community safety zone. So let me summarize the outcomes first. We've seen an overall reduction of 7 kilometers in the speed of drivers. After cameras are relocated, drivers continue or drive more when cameras are relocated, which means that they're not on the device. They're still seeing a continued drivers driving more slowly through this area. So there were 86% fewer drivers speeding in the community safety zones where cameras have returned a second time. In our 2 zones, we've seen a reduction of 13 kilometers an hour on Town Line Road. And as per Station Street, we saw an average reduction of 5 kilometers per hour. So in conclusion, the automated speed enforcement in our community safety zones has been effective in changing driver behavior and making our community safer. The Niagara region also continues to work on behalf of the vulnerable in our communities through successful lobbying through AMO and Roma. Recently, we received new funding to help those with more severe mental challenges. We received $18.9 million over the next 3 years to hire different skill sets to help those who are chronically homeless. We welcome this funding. To put it in context, Niagara has, in 2024, 2,600 people experiencing homelessness, which is an 8% decrease from previous, but 55% are chronically homeless. And with these new funds, we will be used to help them with their mental health assistance and housing. And lastly, the Niagara Emergency Medical Services working on a 10-year master plan. The objectives are to identify optimal and efficient facilities, meet the time targets, and to eliminate risk in where their facility portfolio. As the population grows in Niagara, EMS is needed to adapt to the changing needs. Presently, our station in Smithville is on the long-term plan, so that's good news. So again, I'd like to thank you for allowing me to update you on what's going on at the Niagara region. So if any members of council have any questions, concerns, I'll be happy to answer them for you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Whittemore. Is there anyone who has a question or a concern? Councillor Rayner, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the regional councillor Whittemore, you say there's going to be a light in Fulton. Am I gather it's like a caution light? Much the same, I think it was at Port Robinson and 65, Port Davidson, there was a flashing light. Is that the concept? There's not going to be a stop sign or anything there. It's just going to be a flashing light. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Rayner, a signal is a stop light system. So it'll be like at Regional Road 12. There will be red green and orange lights there, and so when people come from the north or the south, they probably will trigger the light to change, because that seems to be the challenge, is people are going through there at a fairly high rate of speed and passing each other through that intersection. So yes, there will be a full signal operating at that intersection.
Okay, if I may comment on that, having lived in that area for over 40 years, I realize there's accidents there, and I would probably guess that 99% of them are people on Regional 18 crossing in front of people minding their own business driving down Highway 20, and they get T-boned. Having been in the OPP for a number of years, Burlington Detachment, QEW 403 and all that, there are areas on the highway which are chronic areas for accidents. But they don't put stop signs. One of them is the top of the Skyway. You don't put stoplights on the top of the Skyway. You can't always make things safe for everybody, because there are always people who are careless and reckless, and unfortunately innocent people get involved. It's almost like we're penalizing the good drivers because we have some people come to the intersection, and I was there just last week looking, and the sight of vision is a long ways away. If you pulled out because you're texting, not paying attention, drunk, or want to get killed. There's no logical reason why you would pull out in front of somebody at that intersection with the length of view that you got. So what we're doing is we're addressing a situation that is human, a factor that you can't control. And who's going to say that they're going to jump through the red lights and that's going to make a difference? But there's a lot of people that are going to have to stop on that road, which is a nice straight road with no problems, because we've had a history of bad drivers that have got into bad situations because they didn't pay attention. But you're penalizing everybody, much the same as putting stop signs on the QEW or the 403, because there are chronic areas where there's accidents all the time. But the police say, I'm not going to stop the highway. If it's a bad spot, we've got bad drivers, we're going to have to live with it. The only other option is to reduce the speed, which they don't. They did the opposite. They went up to 110. So that's my take on that one. I think we're penalizing a lot of good people and good drivers, and we could put stop signs everywhere, because you got one on Park Road. Yes, again, it's people coming off Park Road and getting T-boned, because that road is a straight road at an 80-kilometer speed, minding your own business, and all of a sudden somebody pulls out in front of you. Well, you can't help that any more than a deer running out in front of you. You're going to ban deer in Ontario because deer cause a lot of accidents?
Councillor Rayner, would you like Councillor Woodavine to take this back to his department? Because he didn't make the choice. He's reporting on a decision that was made after the traffic studies were done.
I know. I just think, and I had spoken to the Director of Public Works about this intersection, and he said he did not think that it would meet any of the regional guidelines or the province's guidelines to have to put a stoplight intersection there.
So the region did warrant it appropriately and has determined that it is appropriate for it to be there. So even though our director maybe thought not, there have been many, many accidents there in the last little while, and the region has warranted it, and they see that it warrants.
And I understand that, because there's been an increase in accidents, but there happens to be a lot of increase in careless people at that intersection that caused the increase in accidents, because that's the only way you could have it, and therefore everybody else is going to pay the piper. You could do that to every intersection in any city if you want to, because sure, it's going to make it safe for everybody stops, but you're not going to enjoy driving if you got to stop every 5 minutes because there's an intersection that a lot of people got in accidents because they didn't pay attention.
Okay, so thank you.
And I have the experience, because I've been on the highway for 5 years on a police cruiser, and I can tell you that there are things you just can't exchange, you can't change, you have to accept. There are bad drivers out there, and there's nothing you can do about it. You see them when you're driving, but sometimes they cause accidents, and you can't fix that.
Thank you. Okay.
So that's my first question. You want to go around the table? I have another question.
It wasn't a question.
Sorry, that was a statement. No, so the question is, could you please, let's make it into a question then. Could you please go back to region and have another possible look at this? I thought maybe you're going to have a flashing light or something so that people coming down the road that may not be from West Lincoln would say, oh, there's an intersection coming up. I better wait sure somebody's not going to come out and cold cock me. or get themselves done.
So I'm sure Councillor Whitavine would take that information back. Do you have something else you want to ask?
Regarding that, no. Can I move on to another subject?
Something to do with the report?
What that, well, actually, it's to do with budgets, and Councillor Whitavine is part of the budgets.
No, we're not rehashing the regional budget. It's over, it's done. It was done in December. We are not touching that.
I don't blame you for that one.
Well, we're not. You've made your opinion known many times over, we know. Councillor Whitavine and I have both said we are not happy with that budget, but it is the budget that was democratically voted, and we are stuck with it at this point in time. So I'm not going to entertain that one. Is there anyone else who has a question? Councillor Bradrick.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Whitavine. Thank you very much for your report. I don't agree with Councillor Rayner in regards to the stoplight. I think that that's a very fast and dangerous part of our community. However, I'm curious as to, and you may not know the answer to this, but the impact that it may have on truck traffic on Silver Street. I'm wondering how we can mitigate that or keep a watchful eye when this gets started, as it's already quite quick and dangerous with a lot of truck traffic on Silver Street. So I'm just fearful that this stoplight will maybe force some trucks a little bit more south onto Silver Street. Do you have any suggestions for us as a council?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Bradrick. I will have further conversation with Director Tassone on the possible, I guess, behavior of commercial transportation on that road. As a personal note, if the light changes quickly, I don't think it's a deterrent. There's a stoplight in Elfrida, and the next stoplight is Regional Road 12, and this would be somewhere in the middle. So from my own personal opinion and as a driver in a commercial vehicle, I don't see that as a deterrent to seek alternative routes. But I will talk to the director and bring that this concern to him and see what his response is on that, Councillor.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Councillor Trombetta?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And, going through the campaign trail, there are some residents that, looking forward to warrant the lights there. Actually, the region did their expansion in that area, so eventually it's going to be coming to that industrial area. So the lights now or later will be coming at some point. Madam Mayor, through you to Mr. Whitavine. I didn't get to see you, I think it was last month, but this has to do with garbage pickup. So my question is, and I'm going to try to get my time frames right. So certain residents that were scheduled on, bear with me with Christmas here because I knew my facts before. So regular pickup was on Tuesday. I think Christmas fell on a Tuesday this year. Is that correct? Was it Tuesday? I think it was. Christmas Eve was Tuesday. So what happened was that was the pickup for garbage that day, but then after Christmas, you have your whole family over, you have Boxing Day and many, many parties afterwards. The scheduled pickup wasn't for another 2 weeks after that. So people have all that Christmas garbage sitting with them for an amount of time. It's quite a bit of garbage, especially if you're having household parties or family over, all the wrapping paper and stuff and such. Is there any way, through you, Madam Mayor, to Mr. Whitavine, to go maybe talk to the region, I guess in some senses, if there could be a different kind of schedule pickup, especially getting caught because you're getting the Christmas plus the New Year's garbage you're trying to accumulate, and then it's not out to the following week because we have to hold it for 2 weeks. And it's an abundance of garbage. And I know some residents have been kind of reaching out to me that, their garages are full or they don't know where to put it, especially from a Christmas Day. Let's say, parties on Boxing Day, parties on New Year's Eve, and then New Year's Day, and then the following Tuesday after that, that's when their garbage went out. And it was an abundance, I guess, following in that 2 week span. Is there any way we can I can go back and tell the residents about, all that accumulation, and what can we do to mitigate maybe something in that manner? If we can,
Okay.
go to the drop it off at the landfill without getting charged or something like that. Madam Mayor, if you can, through you to Mr. Whitavine.
Okay, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Trombetta. The interesting thing would be is it would be a problem in 2020, this past year, and it would probably take a number of years before we cycled the same, where we ran into the same problem.
So it'll be this year coming up again, because garbage will fall on Christmas Day now for, let's say, Wednesday pickup, and then, again, you're stuck with the New Year's Eve as well, and.
So through Madam Mayor to Councillor Trombetta, I always suggest to download the Waste Management app so that you don't miss your garbage collection, and it will notify you of the change, like if that's your collection date, and it will tell you if it's the following day and what materials can be collected. What you're requesting is a higher level of service. When you request a higher level of service, then it doesn't come for, the trucks are scheduled throughout the region to give that level of service. Now you're asking for a higher level of service, which is not an unreasonable request, but it does come at a cost. So I can bring that up to Director Habermill and see how we may, being that Christmas is still, it's a while away, that we can work on that and see if there's a way that we can, make it better for the residents this coming Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah.
And see if she can offer a solution for the challenge that you've presented.
It's just a challenge when you're getting pickup on Christmas Eve and you're not getting pickup until January 7th. So all those parties, all those days that people have at home, that's a lot of accumulation. Usually it's if it falls on a week afterwards, you're allowed to put out the 2 bags for those days, but you're holding it for 2 weeks, and it's quite a bit of accumulation for those days at your home. So I'm just hoping if we can. There's something, again, I know it does, you do say that it does come at a cost, but, wish people could just drive it to the landfill and just toss the 1 bag or something like that themselves. It'd be just kind of, help out a bit, but that's,
A compromise, perhaps.
A compromise,
right?
yeah.
Okay. Is
Thank
that
you,
it,
Madam Mayor.
Councillor?
No, that's all.
Fine?
Thank you.
So I've done this side. Councillor Ryder.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To you, to Councillor Whitavine. So I think I might backpack a little bit on Councillor Trombetta's question there, and I guess more or less throw an idea out there. I kind of was wondering the same myself, if as we come into those unique years where you do have to wait the extra 2 weeks, and I guess next year will be, Christmas Day will be on a Thursday, I think, if this year Christmas Eve was on a Tuesday, right? So that being the case, that actually impacts like my ward as well, and because our pickup's Thursdays. And so I guess my question for something that for the region to look into is, and it would probably require a little bit of restructuring, but maybe for a 2 to 3 week window, could we almost expect like a weekly pickup? And then maybe that kind of gets around the whole, because 2 weeks for us is going to change for the every other week. And so again, I just want to throw that idea, if that's something that could be explored for the seasonal pickup, whatever that looks like. That's obviously up to your staff there, but thought I would chime in a little bit there. The other question I had to you, Madam Mayor, was in relation to the road that's going to see some of the traffic calming measure there, the street lights, and so I support anything that's going to help stoplights. Thank you. I'm going to support anything that's going to help improve community safety. I guess my one concern, and maybe similar to Councillor Rayner, is it going to actually do what it's intended to do if there's no police enforcement regularly visiting? If we're in an area that is seeing a little bit of an increase, are people just going to go through it anyway? And does that create a greater risk, right? If you've got some people expecting other people just to stop, but other people are just used to going through it. So I guess my question to you is seeing if the NRPS will be further consulted, if they can maybe do some regular patrols in that area, so people become more cautious or unconscious of their presence, because we know the police budget makes up a good portion of this year's regional budget, significant portion, and hopefully we can see a little bit of that in return as far as their presence. And I think in an area like this, it would be very useful to have them there a little bit more regularly, maybe before the implementation and everything else, and then shortly after, because again, the traffic light is great, but if people know that there's going to be no police around, well, if the lane looks clear and it's dark or foggy at night and someone just whizzes through, boom, and now we have almost created a worse issue. So again, I appreciate the region recognizing that area needs to be addressed, and I hope that this works, but in the meantime, I think we need to keep communications going with our police.
So, Councillor Riley, if I could just interject as well. Part of my report is just reminding members of council that we do have the police coming. in June.
Yes.
So hold that thought,
Okay.
write it somewhere, because that's, I mean, this will take a while before this happens, but
Yes.
just to put it on his radar.
Yeah, to
that
bring it
with
to
this
their
coming,
attention.
that might be an area worth looking at, I think would
Perfect.
be worthwhile. So write it down somewhere. So
I
you
will.
remember.
Oh, in the meantime, you can still look into it too, that'd be great too. But yes, I will, thank you.
Okay. Okay, is that everyone who's had an opportunity then to say? Okay, so we're going to move on to confirmation of minutes. And Councillor Riley, you have the council minutes from last month, January 27th.
I do, let me bring up my other screen here. All right, it's a long one, be ready. Move on myself that the minutes relating to the January 27th, 2025 council meeting and the recommendations contained therein be accepted.
Oh, you were happy to have that.
I have a long one.
Someone to second that, Councillor Broderick, thank you. All right. Are there any errors or omissions or any questions about those minutes? Okay, so we're ready then to vote, Mr. Clerk. So, okay, that should be on your screen. Hopefully everybody got it. Need to get somebody? Got everybody? Okay, and that carries. And Councillor Broderick, you have the special council meeting from January 28th and February 10th. Do you have both of those?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself that the minutes relating to January 28th, 2025 and February 10th, 2025 special council meeting and the recommendations contained therein be accepted, and that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the January 28th, 2025 special council meeting be accepted, and the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with exemptions provided in Section 239 of the Municipal Act.
Thank you. And someone to second those minutes, please? Councillor Chichok? Okay, and since those are confidential minutes, I will just ask for the vote to come up, please. Okay, that also carries. So there are no communications this evening, and that takes us to the mayor's remarks. And mine take a little bit of a different tone. This has been a bit of an unusual month. So the focus of my remarks this month is on the many West Lincoln teams, in quotation mark, who have been at the forefront of February activities. It has certainly been a month of coming together or teaming up for various purposes. I began the month by judging student speeches at the Smithville Legion Branch 393 on Saturday, February 1st. There were fewer entries in this year's competition, but it was dominated by a student team from Smithville Public School. All students did an excellent job in presenting their prepared speeches in front of an appreciative audience made up of family members and friends. So that was team number one. The weekend of February 7th, 8th, and 9th, our West Lincoln hockey team, consisting of staff members, both male and female, from various departments, made us all very proud as they tried to defend last year's B Division title in this year's Mayor's Cup hockey tournament in Port Colborne. They represented West Lincoln extremely well, showing great skill, sportsmanship, and camaraderie, but sadly they lost the championship game in a shootout on Sunday morning. Family Day began with the team of West Lincoln firefighters providing a delicious breakfast for the community to enjoy. I've been involved in many pancake breakfast fundraisers in my lifetime, but believe me, being able to serve so many residents using that small kitchen space, plus an assortment of griddles, using that really small space required some very skillful teamwork. Our recreation team took over the remainder of the day, providing a great many activities for families to enjoy, and our library team added to the afternoon activity roster by providing their own unique opportunities for family participation. Finally, Family Day was rounded out by a hockey game between the West Lincoln firefighters and a Niagara Regional Police Services team, which also provided some amiable, fun afternoon entertainment for the hundreds of residents who came out to watch. But we're not going to talk about score. Right, Councillor Riley? Remembering the weather that led up to and after Family Day, I would like to thank the Public Works team for their ongoing and varied responses to the ice, snow, and at times very high wind conditions that have plagued us since Groundhog Day on February 2nd. Mother Nature certainly seemed to have wanted us to experience a good old-fashioned Canadian winter. Our roads, sidewalks, and municipally owned parking lots have been cleared and re-cleared over and over again, allowing us to travel safely when it was deemed to be necessary. A different Team West Lincoln, consisting of some staff members, Jackie Thrower, Beth Audette, and Cindy Weir, some residents, Chris Ferrer and John Ganan, and Councillor Chichok and I, took part in the coldest night of the year walk this past Saturday evening. Chris was a great addition to our team and was our star fundraiser. In fact, I don't think anybody can say no to Chris Ferrer when she asks you to donate money for something. And half of what we raised, I think she raised on her own. We had financial support from other current and retired staff members, residents, family members, and friends, who all helped us to collectively raise over $3,000 to support the well-being of women and children in our community. Tonight provides the culmination of the dedicated hard work of our senior leadership team, led professionally and diligently by our finance team, as we, as members of council, make a final decision regarding West Lincoln's 2025 budget. It has been months and months of ongoing work by many staff members to get us to this point, and I sincerely thank them for their work on this extremely challenging budget. One other team requiring thanks this month is a team consisting of our HR and facilities staff. They have been hard at work these past few weeks, packing and lugging boxes, taking down and putting up corkboards, whiteboards, and artwork, and have additionally been moving furniture back and forth as our various departmental offices have been shuffled. This work, which remains ongoing, is to allow for improved departmental productivity and expediency in serving members of the public who come into our administration building to do business. Tomorrow we have another West Lincoln team, this time a team of bowlers, and bowlers I say with a question mark, I think, set to help raise funds for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Niagara through the Tim Hortons Bowling for Kids site. That team made up of Beth Audette, Justin I don't think is a bowler, Barb Hutchinson, who is a good bowler, and Councillors Riley, Chichok, and myself, who are somewhere in between, will be taking part in the corporate challenge aspect of the event, in which all of Niagara's municipalities and many businesses provide a team. This month, I also attended the Transit Open House held at the West Lincoln Community Centre. Councillors Riley and Chichok were also in attendance, as were numerous community members. It was an opportunity to ask questions about and have input into the 10-year strategic plan being implemented by the Niagara Transit Commission. I mention this tonight because there is still an opportunity for members of council and or members of the public to use the online version of the survey, as the deadline has been extended until this Friday, February 28th, due to high demand from the public and the desire for fulsome public engagement in the process by Niagara Regional Transit. Details are on the Township website for anyone wishing to still provide their input regarding transit or our lack thereof. As members of council were previously informed, I made a commitment to hold a meeting earlier in the month with the newly appointed Niagara Regional Police District 8 Staff Sergeant Dylan Bourgeois, which I did on February 11th. We had an extremely good discussion regarding West Lincoln's issues of concern, and as a follow-up, he will be attending our June 16th Community and Protective Services Committee meeting to respond to concerns of council members who will be able to ask questions on behalf of our residents. And finally, I want to say that I was honored earlier this afternoon to attend the West Lincoln Chamber of Commerce virtual AGM and to swear in their new 2025 executive members. I wish them well as these members of the business community step up in this volunteer capacity to do their best to meet the needs of their growing membership. And that concludes my remarks for this evening. Any questions or comments? I don't usually ask that, but that's okay.
Your Worship, I think I have one comment, and that is that I'm not sure what will be funnier, the capability of our team at the bowling event or the cowboy dress that we're supposed to be wearing.
Yeah, it's Western wear. But I tell you, we registered in time that we did win a pizza. So, at least those who are bowling will have something to eat tomorrow. Okay, so under reports of committees, we have Growth and Sustainability Committee from the February 10th meeting. Councillor Chichok, you have that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I have the Growth and Sustainability Committee minutes to move. So moved by myself, the minutes relating to the February 10th, 2025 Growth and Sustainability Committee meeting and the recommendations contained therein be accepted.
Thank you. And someone to second those minutes? Councillor Maychak, thank you. Okay. Any comments regarding those minutes? Seeing none, then we're ready to vote. And it should be in front of you if your machine hasn't gone to sleep. And that carries. The next item on our agenda is the Operations Committee minutes from February 10th also, and Councillor Riley, you have those.
I do. Move by myself that the minutes relating to the February 10th, 2025 Operations Committee meeting and the recommendations contained therein be accepted.
Thank you. And someone to second those, please. Councillor Chichok? Okay, that, if you recall, those minutes had mostly to do with our water operations, and so I'm presuming there are no questions or comments on that, so we can do with the vote as well. And that vote should also be in front of you. Okay, and 12.3 then are the Corporate Services Committee minutes. Again, you seem to get the long ones, Councillor Broderick, but yours is a little bit longer.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself that the minutes relating to the February 18th, 2025 Corporate Services Committee meeting and the recommendations contained therein be accepted, and the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the February 18th, 2025 Corporate Services Committee meeting be accepted, and the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with exceptions provided in Section 239 of the Municipal Act.
Thank you. And someone to second those, please. Councillor Riley? Okay. And seeing nothing further, go ahead, Mr. Clerk. So far, the technology is doing well. Shouldn't even say it, right? That's the kind of thing that John says to me. Why did you say the roads were clear? Okay, and that also carries. So item 13 are staff reports, and of course we have our Director of Corporate Services and Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Caitlin Reeves, and the recommendation report. Caitlin, I'm sure you want to speak to this first, right? So we'll do a resolution to get it on the floor, and then I will come right back to you. So,
I got that
Councillor
one.
Riley, you have the long one this time.
So I had the short ones before. All right, I guess it starts by move by me that the recommendation report T04-2025 titled 2025 Final Operating and Capital Budget dated February 24, 2025 be received. And that a 2025 tax levy of $10,255,120, which represents a 4.62% tax levy increase after factoring in assessment growth, be approved. And that the 2025 hospital levy of $206,900 be approved. And that the 2025 urban service area levy of $186,320 be approved. And that the detailed 2025 capital program attached to Schedule C and D to this report totaling $10,044,650 be approved. And that the balance of capital and special projects for the years of 2026 to 2034 as outlined on Schedules E and F to this report be approved in principle. And that the 2025 water and wastewater utility user fees and charges as presented in Schedule H with an effective date of July 1st, 2025 be approved. And that a bylaw be passed which amends Bylaw 2024-82, Schedule A, to incorporate the water and wastewater user fees and charges effective July 1st, 2025. And finally, that the tangible capital asset amortization, estimated at $3,730,723, and post-employment expenses estimated at $22,800 be and are hereby excluded from the 2025 operating and capital budget as permitted through Ontario Regulation 24809.
Okay, so you're getting
I
to
almost-
the end. You
I almost made
did
it right to the end and I
perfectly.
got tripped
Well
up.
done. That was a long one. Okay, so someone to second that, please. Councillor Broderick, thank you. Yeah, that was a lot of reading. All right, so it's on the floor, and over to you, Director, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this evening, Council is presented with the final 2025 operating and capital budgets for the Township, along with the 2025 water and wastewater utility user fees. As Council will recall, at the January budget meeting, we started with a budget that required an overall general and hospital levy increase of 7.21% over 2024. While administration still endorses the levy requirements presented through this report, feedback from Council to administration was recognized to lower the levy. So through the February 18th meeting, administration brought back a report that presented an overall tax levy increase of 5.4%. However, as council will recall, at the February 18th council meeting, there was further direction to lower the levy requirement, and that's what gives us the report presented to council tonight, which reflects a levy increase, an overall tax levy increase over 2024 of 4.31%. So in summary, the levy that council sees tonight is an overall reduction of 2.9% or $287,420 from the first 2025 budget that was presented to council in January. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done, Caitlin. This has been a really, really tricky budget. We appreciate the work that you spent putting into this, hours and hours and hours of trying to help us deal with this. We did have one extra report that came in, a request from a resident who meant to be here to speak to this during this time. And I'm not sure who would like to present that.
I can read it if you want me to read it.
Do you want to do that? Okay, so one of the things that was for us something that looked like it could easily disappear was an amount of $30,000 for a tree program. And so we have, that did come in time, before time today, so that it needs to be dealt with. The residents' perspective on the fact that there was a bit of a partnership going on and in terms of getting these trees. So we think that needs to come forward. It does represent an amount of $30,000. So I'm just going to ask you first, if that, it said $30,000 over 3 years. So I think that even in discussion when we first saw this tonight, we were wondering, does that mean 10,000, 10,000, 10,000? Or does that mean 30,000, 30,000, 30,000? Which certainly changes our approach to the request. So a clarification first, please.
Through Madam Chair, so yes, I can provide some clarification on what the original project looked like. So this project was included most recently in the budget. At the February 18th meeting, council elected to eliminate it. So the original project, Project 1221 Trees for All, it was a 3-year project spanning from 2025 to 2027. $10,000 was requested in each of those years. So the total project budget was $30,000 over the 3-year period. And this project was going to be funded through the capital reserve.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. So just so that members of the public are aware, I think that if Mr. Cosby had been here, he would be presenting it himself, so we're just going to go ahead and do that.
Okay, so I'll read this on behalf of...
On behalf of...
Yeah, Rob Cosby.
Please.
All right, so council received this afternoon as well as staff, dated February 24, 2025 at 4:18 p.m. Good afternoon. I have intended on being present at this evening's council meeting to discuss this matter. But a personal matter has come up. I've just had recent discussion with the MPCA earlier this afternoon regarding the Trees for All, which is the Trees for All program. Council has chosen to eliminate funding from the budget for the Trees for All project and the partnership with the NPCA with little to no discussion on the merits of this program. This 3-year initiative was a partnership between the MPCA, the Township of West Lincoln, and property owners in the township that are willing to have trees planted on their property. The planting of trees increases habitat areas for wildlife, is a good use of marginal farmland, and is simply good for our environment. The loss of township funding for this program will drastically increase the cost of tree planting for participating property owners if they choose to move forward with their individual projects without financial support from the Township of West Lincoln. As one of those several property owners in West Lincoln already committed to this project, I, and possibly others, may need to reconsider moving forward with the planting this spring. The planting on the farm is scheduled for approximately 500 trees, all native varieties to this area. Increasing the number of healthy trees in our community is good for the environment and is money well spent. I request that Council of the Township of West Lincoln reconsider the removal of the trees of the Tree for All partnership with the MPCA and property owners in our community. Please consider the reinstatement of previously agreed to funding in the amount of $30,000 over the next 3 years with an amendment to the 2025 Township budget, and it's signed Rob Crosby, and I don't think I should probably do I give the address?
No,
Okay, I'll leave his
that's fine.
address
Yeah,
out of it
thank
just
you.
for privacy
Yeah.
reasons, but he is a Smithville resident.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Okay, so from that, Councillor Chichot.
Madam Mayor, I guess in our deliberations last week, I never thought that we had written it off. I thought we had talked about looking at other alternatives to find the funding, which would either be through grants or working with the development community or working with people who are interested in trees. I was thinking that we were never throwing it out, but we wanted the time to look at alternatives rather than putting it on the tax roll. And certainly, I don't remember when we agreed to it. It came as a budget proposal, but Mr. Cosby's comment about it was already agreed to. I'm not sure where that came
Well,
from.
we did. It was one of the things we eliminated to save
Oh, yes,
$30,000
right.
last time. I think that's what he's referring to.
I see, that's fine. It's
So,
just,
and you are absolutely right. We did say that we would look at other ways, but I do
right.
not think, at least personally I did not, and I've spoken to others, did not understand that this was already a program in partnership with other agencies, that it was private landowners. So we had landowners and the township and the MPCA looking to put in more trees. So I think the fact that had Mr. Cosby come tonight, we probably would still be having the same discussion about
Absolutely.
looking at whether this is something, which is why I asked the clarification about $30,000 or $10,000. $10,000 will come back to our director to see if we were to reinstate that, what difference that would make now that we're sitting at 4.31%.
all I wanted to do is say that we never, ever
Yeah.
took the program out. We just wanted time to look at other alternatives of funding.
But we did take it out of the existing
We did take it out of the
yeah.
budget, but we didn't just say, well, we'll never do that. We said we needed to look at alternative funding sources.
Okay. Any further comments on this issue? So I will come back to you then, Caitlin. Is that something that that we could reinstate if the council so chose to do that? And what would that do to our current tax levy? I know you had a teeny bit of a heads up on this, so.
Through Madam Mayor, if it was the will of council to reinstate this Trees for All program, it would depend on what the extent of the reinstatement would be, whether it be the full 3-year program at $30,000 or if it would just be for 1 year. But there will be an impact to the levy.
Do we know what that percent would be?
So if council were to fully reinstate the program, a 3-year program for a total cost of $30,000, that would mean that we would need that funding from the capital reserve. Therefore, we would need to increase the transfer from the capital reserve of $30,000 this year. So that would mean that the levy would be increasing $30,000. So I can outline what that impact looks like to the levy and an average homeowner. So in terms of the overall levy increase over 2024, so the overall levy change, right now it is 4.31%. If this project is reinstated, it would be a 4.62% over 2024. So it would be an increase of 0.31%.
We'd be back to 4.62, okay.
And in terms of the impact on an average homeowner, for somebody that's in the rural area outside of our urban area of Smithville, that would mean an annual increase of taxes of $5.07. On a monthly basis, this would be a 42-cent increase.
Thank you. Okay, any further comments? Councillor Riley.
Thank you. And through you, Madam Mayor, to Caitlin, thank you for my question was going to be what the actual monthly increase would be. I think we need to use dollars and cents when people can actually know how to budget for that community. I guess my question is, I'm not too sure who to steer it to, but just maybe getting more clarity. Are we breaking some kind of contract, some kind of agreement if we were to defer this for a year, or if we were to commit $10,000 this year and then do it again on a year-by-year basis? Is there something that's binding us to have to put the full 30 on this year is what I'm asking. So maybe through you, Madam Mayor, to the CAO.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. So this program administration hasn't entered any agreement. We were waiting for budget approval from council before we took that step. This program, I understand through discussions with the Conservation Authority, is flexible. So it doesn't necessarily need to be 10,000, doesn't necessarily be 20,000, it could be 5,000. If council would like to simply test the waters to see what the uptake of it was, you could begin with a lesser amount and then scale up in future years if the program was getting good subscription. So there's a variety of ways, I guess, council could approach it depending on what number makes sense for council to fund this year.
So you still have the floor, Councillor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Back through you to the CEO. So you mentioned 5,000. So this is a conversation you've had with the MPCA or some kind of representative that has given you some parameters of what maybe that is that like what am I trying to say? If I hear that 5,000, that kind of seems like a good number for starters. Is that going to impact the program, or do you think that's a fair number for us to start at for this year if we're dipping our toes in the water here?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, and perhaps this might be an option that council could think about, because if we do make this change, I don't believe council is going to be able to pass the budget tonight because it would need to come back through a different bylaw. Perhaps what administration could do is return in March at the Community Protective Services Committee meeting with a report on the program. Then council could look at what the details of the program. We could invite NPCA to present as well to talk to council. And then perhaps we could look to either surplus allocation or a withdrawal from the capital reserve to fund the program this year, and then replenish that capital reserve through surplus just in order to get the budget across the line this evening. But I would defer to the Treasurer's preference on how to manage that. But potentially that's a way to pass the budget tonight, get council more information on the program so you could make a decision with more information.
So I would agree with, at the appropriate time, I would ask that we follow that direction there.
So, and in fact, I think the discussion is just a discussion at this
Yes.
point in time.
Okay.
There's no amendment on the floor, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
It's just simply an opportunity to present input from a resident who was affected by that, so.
Will we need, sorry, just before you, will we need, to use back to the CEO, will we need some kind of, do you require direction for us to come back next month? Or is it fine that we kind of leave it with you and you'll just come back? I just want to make sure I understand that before we leave. A resolution?
We will do that, but not
Okay.
in the middle of this. Can we
Okay,
say
so that's
that?
fine.
We will
That's
come
fine. I'll
back to
park that.
that.
Okay, thank you.
Because if the budget stays as it is, then we can pass our budget. We can come back and deal with that issue as well as further discussion. But we don't think we want to muddy the waters other than to ensure that the resident had his concerns addressed, so. Okay.
Madam Mayor, I'm
Councillor
not
Chicho.
really sure if we still don't have monies left from the wind turbine tree payment that was made to us by the company that installed owed the township money.
That's a good thought as well, so perhaps that could be part of what we look at when
So I
when
think that
it's
we
time.
have to look at all the reserves out there that could have advantaged this program without, in the middle of our approving this budget, taking
Exactly.
one ask and putting it on as an additional tax levy. That could be bad precedent setting.
Okay, well, so we have an idea about where we want to go with an initiative that has been brought to our attention, and I think that's a good solution. The other side of the table, you guys, you're all good? You're very quiet over there. It's all good? Okay. All right, so then that just takes us to a regular discussion on what's in front of you, the report that's in front of you. So we'll start with that. We've dealt with the tree issue. All right, are there any questions for our director based on the information that's there? Councillor Riley? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Rayner. No, he didn't have his hand up. I just glanced over and misspoke. Do you have? Just take your time, please. Put your microphone on, we're ready. Okay.
Thank you. I'm a little bit confused with this through you to Caitlin. You said it went to 4.31, but yet number 2 says 4.62 tax levy. And then you said 4.62 when you add the trees back on. So did you add that assuming that was going to go through and that's why you got 4.62? Like, I'm confused where the 4.31 came from because you said it was 4.31, but I don't see that on my report.
So give her an opportunity to answer, okay? Go ahead.
Just be patient.
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Rayner. So when we're looking just at the general base levy, that after growth is an increase of 4.62% over 2024. So that is what is stated in the recommendation, specifically just looking at that particular levy. But when we factor in the hospital levy, So when we're looking at both the base levy and the hospital levy put together, over 2024, after growth, it is a 4.31% increase. So the 4.31% increase is what the overall tax levy increase is of the township's tax levy. Does that help explain?
And then the 4.62 that you printed here was because of,
And the 4.62% increase related to the reinstatement of the Trees for All program is just a coincidence.
so does that mean then we have to add the trees on top of the 4.62?
No, we're not adding the trees at all, Counselor. That was what the discussion was about. We're not including that tree issue at all tonight.
Okay. Now, through to Madam Mayor, so we're open to ask questions with regards to the budget. It is open to do that,
Questions regarding this report,
which is our budget.
which is the budget as has been
Just
amended.
don't touch the region.
After all the work that we did last week, last meeting,
Right.
this is the new report that's come back.
Okay, so through to Caitlin, the 4.62, is that the blended rate?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Rayner, no, that is not the blended rate when considering all three taxing authorities. That is just the township portion.
Correct, so let's not shock the people when they get their tax bill saying, that's not what they said. Can you please tell me what reality is?
So,
Because this is
Councillor,
only one part of a,
yeah, so Councillor Rayner, you have the budget in front of you? You have the report in front of you?
yes,
If you look at the overview section, then our director has provided that, the overall tax bill, which includes all three taxing authorities. You see the third bullet down?
oh, that'd be on the next page.
That's where your information is that
Third.
you're asking for.
No, the third bullet says 2025 hospital
No,
levy. of
on the
2,000.
overview of today's report, the third bullet down in the overview, it says the overall tax bill, which includes all three taxing authorities. Do you see there?
I honestly don't see it, do I? It's not there.
Well, it's on our computer.
But it's not on what I printed out.
It's on the
today.
one I printed out, so I don't know.
Do you see it, Councillor Chichester?
Well, I don't know what page you're on there, so.
I'm sorry, I don't.
That's okay, maybe if we bring this up here.
Yeah, but look, this is the report that we printed that everybody in the public would have.
Well, this might help you clarity, so that's what the mayor's talking about there.
Yeah, this doesn't say overview. So that's the
Probably just
problem.
got the agenda version.
Okay, so what is, okay, so through to Caitlin, then what is the total blended number?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Rayner, so the blended impact for an average resident within the urban service area is 5.91% over 2024. For an average homeowner outside of the urban service area, it is 6.01% blended rate over 2024.
Okay. All right, now, Madam Mayor, can I go into a few details, please?
If you have questions, you can ask
I
your
have questions. Through to the CAO, sorry, from the mayor over to Caitlin, the Director of Finance. I asked last week what additional positions were at the rec center that was above and beyond what was in the original one where our previous mayor said that there would be no increase in costs, it would be a lateral move, staffing and everything else. You mentioned 4 individuals. Can you mention those positions again, and as a total, how much dollars that is?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Rayner. So those positions noted at the February 18th meeting, those were Parks Arena Operator, Customer Service and Administration Clerk, Supervisor of Facilities, Parks and Arena, and the Recreation and Wellness Programmer position. There was a conversion of that role that was previously part-time, and it was converted to a full-time role. And the total impact to the 2019 and 2020 budgets, as approved by council, was $251,000. I'd just like to note, too, that these positions that were added on, they are within the Recreation and Cultural Services area. They are not tied or fully servicing just the West Lincoln Community Center. They service all of recreation services.
Okay, so that adds 2.6% onto the tax bill that's already incorporated, plus the 15.2%, which was the cost of building it, which was 27 years. So between the two, we're about 15.5% is the cost of that facility to the yearly taxpayer. However, that 15.2% was put on the property tax base, which means it's part of the tax base compounded annually against the budget. So that number is actually higher, but it's hidden because you don't see it because it's already in the property tax budget.
Councillor Rayner, do you have questions about this particular report?
Well, I'm
sir?
just saying that there are underlying things in this, Madam Mayor, that have raised this level, and those were one of them. But I'm finished with that right now. I will move on to the next.
Thank you. A question about this report?
Now, this budget of 5.91% includes, according to the report, a salary increase of 2 individuals hired on to this, and through to Caitlin, of this 5.91 or 6.01, is 3.38% of that 2 hirings to the township? Based on your page 190 of 218, it has a breakdown of levy impact, and the 2 hirings bring it to 3.38%. I'm only assuming that of that total number, more than half of it is the hiring of staff for this township?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Rayner. So the percentage increase you noted, the 5.91%, that is the blended rate. So that includes all 3 taxing authorities. So the increase that we should be looking at is the township portion specifically, which is the 4.31% increase. Because if we look at 5.91%, that is including taxing authorities that are outside of the township's jurisdiction. We have no control over those levies.
That was my fault, sorry.
By the region. Okay, just wanted to clarify that. And then just regarding your question of the addition of the 2 FTEs, that was presented for information to the report, the January 27th report to council. Those were identified as pressures on the 2025 budget. So those are included within the levy increase. However, staff or administration at the January 27th meeting also outlined several significant mitigations that were helping to lower the tax levy. So those, as you mentioned, those staff increases are included, but there's several mitigations that are offsetting those increases.
Because right now they represent 73% of this tax increase for the Township of West Lincoln, just in staffing alone. And I know my constituents are not in favor of increasing township staffing because everybody's got their opinion of that, and they don't feel they're getting a bang for the buck when they're loading the township up. And the services haven't changed, but the amount of people on the payroll have. So that's not a highlight for the people in my area. In fact, that's one that usually results in a lot of phone calls saying, what in the heck is going on here? I want my dollars used out in the township, out on the roads. We don't need more staff. We need to get the work done. So this is the concerns that I think will be coming back with regards to this, because that is 73% is huge. Okay, moving on to the next one. Roads in Ward 1 are not in the budget. $6.1 million going to Ward 3 as brought to the
So again,
attention.
we're going to stop because we're not rehashing all of the things that we already did the last meeting. When the director was here, he explained that thoroughly. He told you it was not 6.1, that 4 million of that plus
No.
was government grants that we're coming to do.
Correct, but it's all going into the one ward, and
Well,
Ward 1
it's
is
going
basically
in-
getting nothing.
Since 2019, that money has been allocated to there. It just happens to be this year that the work is ready to be done.
Okay,
So
but-
we're not doing that, Councillor. We're not opening up all of the previous discussion. We had those agreements. We eliminated
Okay.
things last week.
Well, I
And we're
made
down,
my
we're down
point
to a budget.
that Ward 1 is basically not in this budget. which
Well,
is
they
gonna
are,
be a-
because they still are, they're not having new roads done. Nobody
they're
can
not in the
disagree
budget.
with that. Well, they certainly have their roads
What else is
plowed and
being
their
done if we're
ditches
not doing
dug.
roads?
They have their roads plowed, they have their ditches done.
Everybody gets their roads plowed. That's common to
So-
everybody.
so-
What's the deal with Ward 1 on
Do
that?
do not argue, thank you. It
Well, I
is
have
very
to argue.
common,
That's what
but
we're
it
here
is,
for.
but it is what's being done throughout our municipality. We are all getting those similar things. Your ward also is getting those things.
Well, that's great. So they,
It
Ward
just
2
took-
gets their the roads
Oh.
plowed and 6.1 million on top of it. Great, okay, and I'm supposed to say that's great. Okay,
Yeah, no,
fine.
you're not supposed to say it's
Okay.
great, but
Let
you've
me-
had your
let me-
opportunity.
Let me move
Thank
on.
you.
What was last thing I want to clarify, and then I'm
Well,
finished?
you've already had your 10 minutes.
Well, I didn't even, well, then, Madam Mayor, if you were going to put me at 10 minutes, you could have had the courtesy of telling me I had 10 minutes, and I would
Well-
have known I had 10 minutes. Let's
Well,
be fair here. If you're going
so
to make rules,
it-
don't make
no,
them
the
after
rule-
the fact, make them before the fact.
The rule is in our procedural bylaw.
Well, thank you,
Look
and
at
I'm
it.
supposed to remember that. So maybe when everybody's done and I can go for a second
You
round,
can
that
come
would be
back
fine.
again if you wish, after
Thank you.
everybody else has had a turn. But look for things that actually have to do, please, with this report that's just been provided this evening. If you find something there that you have a question about or you want to discuss, we'll be
And I have
happy to
asked
hear that.
questions, but thank you.
The rest was discussed before that. Councillor Maychak, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I made this comment previously, but I'm going to make it again because I think it's timely. I want to commend our leadership and our CAO for coming into this job, identifying weaknesses, identifying what was needed, and filling in gaps to ensure that we have the right staffing complement to do the job that we're expected to do by the residents. My question for our Director of Corporate Services, though, is, and you might not be able to answer this, but our portion of the tax levy is 4.31, and I'm just curious where that might rate with other approved budgets and other municipalities and townships. Do you know that, or could you comment on that? Are we at the low end, or at the medium, or at the high, or where do we stand in terms of comparatives with other municipalities?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Chichuk, so I can provide some information on that. I just need to. Sorry, my apologies. I just need to pull up my my information on that. So just one moment, please.
Such a pain. Such a pain.
Okay, so just in comparison to West Lincoln's percentage, we are currently at the 4.31% increase over 2024. So I can provide some comparator information just based on ones that I know of that have been approved. With the town of Lincoln, they approved a tax increase of 7.87% after growth. Pelham, the town of Pelham approved a tax increase of 4.84% after growth. Waynfleet approved a tax increase of 5.66% after growth. Those are just a few comparators.
Thank you. That's it, Councillor, or do you have more?
Do you know of any that might be lower than what we're currently at, or you're just not sure at this time?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Maychuk. In terms of other Niagara municipalities that are lower than West Lincoln's increase, I believe St. Catharines what came in lower, as well as Welland.
So thank you for that. And further to that, St. Catharines and Welland, of course, are two of the municipalities that had transit uploaded. And so therefore, their residents have a lower municipal tax, but they also pay a good portion for transit. And then on top of that, their hospital levy as well. So it's a little bit of apples to oranges in terms of the cities that have transit versus us. But okay. Anything else? No? Okay. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I guess just to comment on that, like also St. Catharines and Welland have quite the population compared to West Lincoln as well. So they've got a much bigger tax base. So the fact that they're able to come under, I'm not surprised. But I think in hearing our director's explanation there that we're right now one of the lower tax brackets, and we managed to get it into 4%, which I thought was going to be an impossible task to begin with when we were first presented to this back in January, I think is worth noting. And thank you, to you, Madam Mayor, to our director, for your patience and understanding as we really, held your feet to the fire as we tried to find ways and made compromising moments in terms of like trying to just wiggle and dime everything we can. I guess my question was, it was related to something I think Councillor Rayner was mentioning. And so I guess I want to, in reflecting on this budget here and future budgets, I think it's really important for the community to recognize, like, when we go to, this is not one ward versus another. I remember previous tax reports come forward where Ward 1 was the only one benefiting from roads. And so at that point, I get, we're not going to sit here and ridicule the report based on my ward's not getting enough of this. This isn't like Christmas time we're trying to spend, should you celebrate Christmas, not to offend anyone, but should you spend equal amount on each child? It's really about the needs and wants and addressing what our science is showing us and what roads need to be addressed. And we got funding from the government and trying to make efforts to get more funding provincially and federally so we can address all the roads issues that we have, because there's a lot, and I think the residents recognize that. But I would also say, in recognizing the cost around public works, and so one of our public works managers, who's no longer with the organization, but years ago broke it down to me that we invest upwards of 80 to 85% of our public works budget into servicing our rural communities, and so when you look at that stuff there, it's costs that get lost, that people don't see every day. They just kind of get assumed and forgotten about, but there is a significant investment that takes place. It's not just plowing, it's everything and the equipment required and the staffing, so that's important to note there. We can all sit here any given year and whine and complain about what my ward's getting and what your ward is not. I don't think that's fair. If we want a divisive community, we can have that, but I don't think that's what they want us here. We got to work together to kind of find that solution to get us all on the same page. But I get that. I just really wanted to make that general comment because I think that's a little unfair for residents who might be watching. They kind of get that interpretation that someone's being short-sighted. When we look at some of the expansions or things to come and things are in works, we have a lot of our entire municipality really has been utilizing the rec center, community center, and that's not just for one particular ward, even though it's in Ward 3, and Ward 3 I think unfairly gets beat on because of it, but it's kind of the center hub that kind of brings everyone together. You're not going to necessarily put a facility that size in an area that doesn't have very much population to support it regularly, and it's a center point, but that is a center that is used by just about, I would say, my estimation with no science behind it, but I'm going to say at least 80% of the community takes advantage of that community, and and that represents both wards, or all 3 wards, I should say. So, when we see the investment in a staff, anyone who knows me knows I like small government too, but I don't think we're running things efficiently. If we're wanting to get more stuff done with status quo staff, that just doesn't work. It's not like staff's not doing anything. We run a pretty lean organization, and I know the mayor will agree with me here. When we go to other conferences and we're talking about what our organization is and how it's designed, everyone's like, wow, that's a pretty lean organization, and they're impressed with what we're able to get done with how little we use and how much our staff actually takes on their shoulders to do it. So I get it's easy to pick on municipal government and say you're not doing your job because I pay all this tax, I see nothing in return, but I don't think that's you trying to rush me along? Well, I was getting to that. You gonna?
Oh, because I was asked, I have to have a question out of it.
Yeah, well, you went 8.5 minutes, I think, before you put your question out there, but anyways.
Thank you.
So I'm apparently keeping Councillor Rayner from a hot date here. So, so I'll just leave it from there. But thank you.
And Councillor Chichot, you wanted an opportunity.
I do have a comment, and that is that, as many others have, been satisfied with the amount of work, in fact, overwhelmed by the amount of work that all of our staff have tried to do. That's great. We have a new CAO in which we put our trust, and a number of new staff that have been moved into their new positions. So I can't but continue to trust them throughout this year. And to put the right staff in place, we may have a few extra people right now. Maybe. I don't know. And I don't think anyone around this horseshoe or in this council chamber know what it is going to take to get us to the new lift. But what I can know is that St. Catharines and Welland both had shovel-ready projects on intensification, which put them out there with with large supplementaries because they kept growing. And West Lincoln begged the province, and we were successful in our last ask, to get the money to open a bit of the gateway to get our new infrastructure underway. Once that new infrastructure goes underway, we will then open up the growth that's going to happen in our existing urban area, not the bigger one. So I would assume that we too will benefit from coming years where if we were putting things into this year's budget, we're squeezing every nickel and every dime. As growth comes along and picks up their proportionate share of everything, be it the hospital, that levy will go down. Development charges, that levy will go down on the contribution from the municipality. So there will be, and here comes the question. Am I correct, Mr. CAO? Through you, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. CAO.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Shechuk, that is correct. Growth will offset the cost of the municipality and enable increased levels of service.
Thank you. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, so to put that in terms that some of the public would have already heard as well, our assessment growth for last year's budget was only 0.36%. We didn't have much money to offset the costs that are going up no matter what. This year, it's a little bit more, and we've seen the benefit of that, and that's because our business area has grown. We've had small businesses and large businesses making changes in our municipality, and that has helped. So we do need another influx of growth, you're absolutely correct, to help offset the ever-increasing costs of doing business. So
To
thank you.
unburden the existing taxpayers for things that
Absolutely.
will last many years and will service growth as it arrives.
Thank you.
And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, so one last chance for those of you who haven't spoken before I go back to Councillor Rayner for his second time. Okay, Councillor Rayner.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, a question through to the CAO. Last week I brought up the library, and I asked about the situation there and the fact that they seem to be closed more than they are open, which leads me to believe that a facility that's not being used shouldn't stay in the property of the township. But through to you, Mr. CAO, is there anything that we can do with regards to the library in order to make that more accessible to the residents? Because right now they have the door locked Monday to Thursday, which the reason I said, why are we keeping this? It's not because I want to close it. It's because it is closed. So it's sending a message which is not positive. And I hope the paper's listening, because apparently they took it to the far extreme. I was the councillor who pushed for that library then. My counterpart, Sue Ellen Merritt, did not support the library in Casterville. I pushed and got that library. I'm a strong supporter of the library, but I'm hurt by the fact that all that hard work and now we're closing the door. Basically what I was trying to do was pinch the bear and wake them up to say, you've got a beautiful building. That's the hardest work, is to get the building. All you got to do is keep it open and utilize it, because that's why we put the building there. Why are you locking the doors? So through you, Mr. CEO, is there anything this township can do through with the library board to make that library more accessible, for the purpose for which I highly support libraries? In fact, I was there last Friday. There was children in there looking around. It was enjoyable. My wife goes there every week practically to drop books off, but she can't do it during the rest of the week because it's closed. So is there anything can be done to make that facility more accessible, which was the reason it was built in the first place? Because I certainly don't want to close it, but I don't want to see the doors locked all the time.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Rayner. As Council is aware, the library is funded through an operating grant transfer that Council approves each year and funds the budget as presented by the Library Board. Those operating decisions are made by the Library Board as an autonomous entity. So we're in this together to an extent. What we're able to afford through the operating grant allows the Library Board to deliver the levels of service that it supports. I think that to the question, though, what could the township do with the Library Board to help with this? I think at AMO coming up, and I know Mayor Ganan has mentioned this, there is an opportunity to again go together, perhaps with the Library Board alongside us, and ask the province to consider increasing that operating grant that it provides to library services across Ontario, as it has been frozen in place for a number of years. So I think certainly looking to the provinces is one example. Another way that we could look at it is depending on what one's view around growth is, growth is an opportunity to fund library services without the impact hitting the existing ratepayers in the way it currently is right now. So I think those are the decisions that this council can make, but anything further, I think, should be directed towards the CEO of the library, Ms. Weir, who could perhaps get into operations a little bit more better than I could.
Thank you. Madam Chair, through to Ms. Weir. Like I said, I pushed that library. I was there when the MPD Nallison and our MPP was there, and we put the shovel in the ground. And I was very proud of getting that building because we were using an old house on John Street, and it was totally inadequate. And it's a beautiful library, and I want to continue to see it used, but I hate to see it closed. Was it always closed? I was under the assumption back in 2005, I believe it is, when we did this, that library was open during the week. Has it slowly been closing the doors? Like maybe 10 years ago it was 3 days a week it was closed, and before that it was 2 days a week it was closed. How did we get to the point where in a 5-day week it's only open 1 day?
So, thank you, Cindy. So while you're making your way, I will say that I was on the board in 2005, the library board, when that ground was done. And those residents worked really, really hard to come up with a lot of that money that went into that new building, as did the municipality. The municipality was putting money aside, and the residents were fundraising over and over and over and over again, which is why I think some of them have been upset with the suggestion that it could be closed. I don't think that that was the intention ever of this committee. However, Cindy wasn't here at the time, but the library has changed over time. There was a time when one librarian, being Barb, was allowed to be there all by herself. That no longer is legally possible. You now need to have 2 staff members. The interim way around that was to have a staff member and then try to have the second person, in case of an emergency, be a volunteer. And that's no longer feasible either. So there are several changes in legislation that have made some of those changes come about. And some of that, I'm sure that Cindy will speak to, is about staffing as well. So anyway, go ahead, please, Cindy.
So I was going to say that I have limited knowledge on the past. I go back to 2021 with some of the information. I do want to thank you for coming to the library. That's really wonderful to hear, and I'm glad that you enjoyed yourself Friday night. We are open at Caster. We're open Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Those are the hours that we're able to manage with the funding that we have from the province and from the township. We're grateful to have those hours. As Mayor Ganan has indicated, we had some different opportunities in the past that we don't have now, particularly with staffing and with Employment Standards Act's requirements. But we would be happy to be open many more hours if that was an option for us, but it isn't.
Through you, Madam Chair, it is an option, though, that you could come to council, and as I asked the CAO, is there anything you could do to help us? Because we're not open as much as we'd like to, and it's a nice facility. Is there anything the township could do? And then the CAO would have said, yes, we're going to various events where we can speak on your behalf to try to get it. But that's why I said closing it, because I want to put a fire under somebody to say, hey, somebody's even looking this way. Yes, because it's not open enough. And my interpretation of all the work to get that building was there for the people, and it can only be there for the people if it stays open. So if it's starting to close because, as the mayor said, regulations and stuff, then come to us and say, look, we got a problem. We have to double the staff for safety and all the rest of this stuff, and we still want to keep it open. I don't necessarily get all the information to be in the best interest of the library board. I done what I could. I built the building. I assumed it was being used. If it's being underused because of financial problems, come to us and let us try to help you. Because other than that, we don't know. I was shocked when I found out how much it was closed. And I wanted to make people angry that I was saying, let's close it, because I wanted the opposite to happen. I want them, no, we're going to work harder to keep it open. I think we need a program, Madam Mayor, as strong to keep this thing open as we did to have the thing built. Because now we've got an
So
operating
that
problem.
does say why I've had many letters from residents this week who are upset to think that it might be closed.
Yes, but
have
I didn't do
reassured
that
them.
in the sense to close it. I did that in the sense to say, hey, wake up, let's
Yeah.
utilize this building. Leaving this building like this is not an acceptable situation.
So-
It's there to help the
So,
people.
Council, you're saying that, but the people who have been reaching out are the people who are using it. And they know it's more than one day a week, and they set their schedules around the time that the library is open, so they utilize that time. So it's unfortunate, but
I bet you
what-
that library was open every day of the week when it was first built.
No,
Madam Mayor?
it was never open every day of the week, but let's.
It was close,
Let's
probably.
let this go. But ultimately, I don't want to argue this issue, but we have, Cindy is well aware that we have already delegated to try to get the public library grant, which has been the same $22,900 for more than 20 years. That's all the government puts into libraries. And we have delegated and we have already committed to going again this summer to AMO. You ask what comes out of that? That's the kind of thing that we hope will come out of it. Although from 2013, which is the last year that I kept stats, the library budget has quadrupled. The PLOG, the Public Libraries Operating Grant that comes from the province, has stayed 100% the same. It has not changed one penny in all those years. So that's what we're working on now. But we, as a council, let them have their budget money, and they have to do the best they can with it. And so they are doing that, and they are making sure that the other libraries are also open accordingly.
Madam
So-
Mayor, how is this different from Mr. Cosby's when he asked about money for the trees? Can we not top this up a little bit and help them?
At this point in time, we are not reopening that aspect of our budget.
No, but I mean next
The
year. Let's
Well,
for-
next year, the library board will come back with their ask, and when we have those deliberations, then you can bring that up. But at this point in time, the library board has done an excellent job of trying to help save a little bit of money this year. We commended them last week for that very thing, that brought it down the way you wanted that down.
Madam
So
Mayor.
it's now down. But I'm going to leave this for a minute because Councillor Trombetta has
Waiting
been dying
patiently.
to say something.
Waiting
about this.
patiently over here. Your microphone, sir. Because then one day I'll lose the momentum when he says microphone. So, Madam Mayor, as another Ward 1 councillor, and being a part of that ward, that I know that library is very passionate because my mother was a big part in building that library at the beginning with Councillor Rayner. And I'm glad Councillor Rayner, because I did field a lot of phone calls and emails due to some of the comments that were made, and I just want to clarify that, Councillor Rayner is mentioning that, he uses the word closed a lot, but it gets misinterpreted through the public that we're closing it. But the hours of operation, I just want the public to know that the hours of operation are Tuesday and Wednesday, 5 to 8 or 9 o'clock, I think we just brought up, sorry. It's closed on Monday. It's open Tuesday from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., Wednesday from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., Thursday closed. It's open all day Friday, 10 to 5, and all day Saturday, 10 to 5. So there's quite a bit of times during the week that it's open 4 days out of the week. It's during the day on Saturday and Sunday where, where kids,
Friday and Saturday.
people usually take their families because kids are in school during the daytime, so they usually go there to take out their books and do their programs on the weekend. So, I just want the public to be aware that we are not closing the library. We're always looking at ways of saving money, but it's never the intention to defund the library or close the library by any shape or form. So I'm just trying to get that on the record. And I know Councillor Rayner is agreeing with that because I can see his hand movements from across the table. So just so the public is aware, because again, I've fielded many emails and phone calls, this council is committed to always supporting the library. They're not closing the library or not defunding anything for the Casterville Library. It'll remain the same as it was last year and the year before, and we'll continue it as we go further into the future. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Cindy. Okay. Councillor Rayner, was there anything else you wanted to say?
No, Madam Mayor, thank you for the time. I just want that clarified because I think there was erroneous. Sorry, I think it was erroneous. For what I heard, I didn't see the article in the paper, but I was trying to create a spark of interest by going in that direction because I want the library utilized, and I don't think enough pressure has been put on us or library board to get the maximum utilization that property should have. And like Councillor Trombetta said, I was there with Madam Mayor Trombetta and myself and the grand opening, and I was so proud of getting something that everybody wanted there. And I want it to continue to be that way, but I just want it open more. And the question was to see, can you get back through to the CAO? Can you get back to us, please, after those meetings you're going to and your other sources to see if it's possible we can get something? And
So we
at
do
least
report back after being at AMO. We do. And we reported back after being at Roma.
specifically to whoever it is in charge of the library?
Yes?
She will be part of what we do. She was part of putting together the delegation that we made the last time. It was Cindy and I that worked together on the delegation that we presented when we went the last, and we're going to continue to do that.
And Madam Mayor, you said it's been stagnant, the amount of money that's been given over the last few years?
Absolutely.
Now, you would think that if you approach this person and say, in the interest of our children and learning, it's better to be, you would think they would open the heart a little bit?
Well, there is no one person. As you know, the ministries change, the ministers change, and so each time it's like a fresh delegation. But we will do it again this year.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Riley.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment, Madam Mayor. I guess, again, I want to ask through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Rayner. You're speaking so passionately about this, and I'm pleased because, the Mayor, myself, Councillor Chicha, Councillor Braderick, all at some point have gone to these conferences and advocated for the library. But you're very passionate about it, and I really hope that this year we can count on your support to be there, because perhaps having you there would really help send the message home and truly represent the constituents in your ward if they could count on their councillor to be at these conferences where we're meeting with the ministers, we're making our case, and we're hearing from the wisdom and the experience, such as yourself, that you bring to the table. I think would be valuable. So hopefully this year we can count on you to meet us there. It is well, this one's in August. It's usually the 20th to the 23rd. But is it? Okay, so I might be wrong on the date. You could double check with staff, but I would encourage you to come out and then take part of it, because I think you'd bring a lot of value there, and who knows, maybe just having that extra voice there might actually help us solve that problem.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. All right, so before we leave the issue of this budget, there's nothing further on this report. The clerk informs me that since we had the discussion about the tree issue within the confines of this topic, we should put forward our resolution about what we want to do about the tree issue. And that should be part of this, first of all, and then we'll vote on the budget, is what he tells me.
That tree issue, part of the budget?
Well, that's what I said. It's not part of the budget, but
It is still left, through the mayor to Councillor Chichak, it is still being left off, as I understand it.
Yes.
However, now administration is being directed to research and come back with a report at the following corporate services meeting, unless I have misinterpreted what.
But we haven't voted on the budget yet.
yeah, so we aren't, but there's no plan to change this budget based on that.
This is,
Need a motion to come back. I think he's.
That's the
yes,
motion
yes.
that our
Through-
clerk thinks we need to have.
Yes.
But,
Through the mayor, since this is what is on the table, the amending motion, in order to put this amending motion on the floor, it needs to be attached to this.
But I
don't
don't
think
think
we
it's
want
meant
an
to be an
amending
amending motion. We're not amending the
So-
resolution at all.
No.
Through the mayor to Councillor Chichak and to the rest of council, the motion on the floor is the budget that we had read out initially.
Exactly.
If we vote on that, council must move on to the next item, foregoing the opportunity to put this motion on the floor.
But can it come forward as new business later on?
No. Through the mayor and to the rest of council, no, because it wouldn't be pertinent, time-sensitive information. It could be brought up through any amount of time of the year. The way our new item of business is set up through our procedural bylaw, it'd need to be something pertinent and time-sensitive that couldn't be done at any other meeting.
Okay.
Well, sorry,
ahead,
Madam Mayor, I
Councillor
think
Chichak.
that's different, and again, I'm caught short on how it is that our procedural bylaw has been changed, and I think we need to look at
Hasn't
that
changed.
again, because it would normally be that we would vote on the budget so as not to contaminate it.
Exactly.
And then we would move on to the next item, which would be to deal with some way, a motion, and I'm just saying my opinion, but in the past it has been that way, so this is catching me short, and I would really like to go through that procedural bylaw before we get too far into the year.
So I might,
Go ahead,
Madam Mayor,
Councillor
through you to our clerk, you mentioned about the timing aspect of it, and I would perhaps not so much disagree, but challenge the idea that the timing would be essential, considering the funding and everything that we need to decide what that direction should be. So maybe if we could, on this situation, bring it forward through a new item of business, and I think we could get the support around the horseshoe to do so, because I think the urgency is that we'd like to see this come back in March, and by doing so, that would allow us to kind of work within the framework. I know that from what I've recently learned with our procedural bylaw, councils before, we haven't been properly utilizing it. We've kind of been abusing it and without knowing it, and now we're actually using it properly, and this is kind of the little turbulence I think we're coming through. But I think on the timing aspect alone, because this needs to come back in March with that report, so we can kind of package it together after this is all done, and we're not waiting 3-4 months and having to amend any budgets, I would argue that perhaps the timing part would be a qualifying factor in this instance and circumstance.
And excuse me just one second, I think as well, further to the conversation is, if we're talking about spring plantings, then having that information come back does make it time sensitive. This is end of February, we're talking end of March by the next council meeting, mid-March, if we're just looking at corporate services or wherever else it might come back. So I think it can fit within those parameters. And it does not muddy our budget, because it's not an amending anything to the budget. We're sticking with the budget the way we brought it forward, we discussed it, and we've left it alone, even though it was part of these discussions. It's not part of the resolution at all.
Madam Mayor, I like where you're going, and I think that is true, because the other thing we could do is we could waive our procedural bylaw and still do
We
the
can
item.
waive the procedural bylaw.
And it's just to keep it clean, because if we do this, and this is the concern I have, is that if we bring on an emergent issue that is going to affect our budget presentation, what right or wrong could we have from other members of the public who would say, well, geez, if I'd known it would have been that easy, I would have put a letter in. So leaving it the way it is, and either treating it as sensitive, time sensitive, and putting a motion forward, which I totally support, would be the appropriate matter, or waiving our procedural bylaw, so that we have two distinct issues. If the clerk
And I
wishes.
would agree to either, but I do not think we need to waive our procedural bylaw in order to do this, when it is, it does fit within. And so it would be a resolution of council, but I've seen lots of nodding heads. I think we have the support to move that forward to that point of the meeting and keep our budget deliberations clean.
Through the mayor and the rest of council, if it is the will of council, it can be brought forward through new item of business, if that is the wish that council wants to do.
So, Mr. CEO, do you want to weigh in at all on that, or are you good with that? Because it's going to fall on you, since we are bringing it back, and it is going to end up being a direction to staff, right? So,
Administration will endeavor to get the report back to council at the committee meeting as soon as we can, and ultimately, if it's council's decision, it is council's procedural bylaw, and the clerk advises, and it is the chair's decision to rule. So we will proceed.
I will rule that we vote on the budget and deal with the budget, and then we will come back to that, okay? Thank you. So it's been a long while ago, but we do have a mover and a seconder on the budget item. We've had plenty of discussion. We can have a recorded vote. It's appropriate at any time. Okay,
So through the mayor to the rest of council, I will conduct the recorded vote as I have it in front of me. I will ask you yea or nay, and then I just need an indication from the member of council. So the first member of council I have is Mayor Gannan.
Support.
Councilor Riley.
Support.
Councilor Bradrick.
Support.
Councilor Rayner.
Do not support. Not support.
Councilor Chichok.
Support.
Councilor Trombetta.
Do not support.
Councilor Maychak.
Support.
That motion carries.
Okay, thank you. So, no, we're not going to vote on that electronically. Once we have a recorded vote, if it's done that way, then we don't need an electronic vote? Yeah. No, they can hear. I think that's the difference, and that's why you would have a recorded vote, so that everybody's vote. So we have then nothing to reconsider, no notices of motion to rescind, and we'll go to other business. So members of council, for council remarks. Oh, break his hand up, so we'll go around. Shelley, please. Okay.
I
Greg?
just wanted to welcome Cynthia to her new director position. I wish you well and look forward to hearing about some of the things you'd like to do in terms of improvements and enhancing the services to our community.
Councillor Bradwick?
Thank you. Last meeting, we had some kudos from council in regards to Public Works and their great work at removing all the snow that we've had. Just a little warning to the public around the quick melt that we're about to experience and the dangers that that does pose. So please, take it easy out there. We'll look forward to some updates from our Public Works Department in regards to how some of that cleanup is going, because I fear as this is melting that we may be in for even more work on their part. So we'll be watching for those updates as they have been coming through during the storms. I'm sure we'll get an update with the melt as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Trombetta, nothing? So I'm going to just stop there to just let our new director know that when you are ready to stand your committee up and start having meetings, then Councillor Trombetta will be chairing that, and Councillor Maychak will be the vice chair. So those will be the people that you'll most closely work with. So, okay, Councillor Riley.
Don't really have much to say other than I'll gonna repeat what AMO was promoting this summer. Then the 27th here, the Ontario elections is taking place, and I believe their slogan this year was "Vote like your life depends on it." And so please get out and vote and have your voice heard. And and then just to hammer down what I've been saying all along, let's focus on products that are made in Canada. Thank you.
Councillor Chichop? Councillor Rayner?
Nothing at this time, thank you, Madam.
Okay, thank you. So then that takes us to new items of business, and we do have a new item of business. It says only for items that require immediate attention and direction from council and must first be approved by a motion to introduce a new item of business. So we'll go with Councillor Riley introducing the new item, and we have to vote that we will accept that. So
Absolutely.
I don't, but we first
Okay,
need to
so
know.
I'll move it. So what do you need me to say?
We need to know that you want to bring forward an
So-
item of business connected to
Yeah, so I will.
the
Trees for All's program?
Trees for All program.
Yeah, so I'd like to bring that item forward as presented through the constituent earlier.
Okay, and Councillor Chichop, you willing to second that? Okay, and all in favor of a new item of business, we can just do that by hand. Good, okay, so we have a new item of business on the table, and we need a new motion. So has somebody thought out the wording of that? Councillor Chichop,
kind of
have you worked on that one to?
Not directly, I think the clerk has it. Go
Okay,
ahead,
so
but I
the
do
clerk-
have.
clerk
Through
may
the mayor
have
to
that
the
one.
rest of council, that administration be directed to return to the next corporate services meeting with further information regarding the Trees for All project.
Is that
With there-
sufficient?
with
Is that
further
sufficient
funding
direction?
options. I thought we were talking about further information or further funding options.
I think you want both. We want to
think we
know
do.
about the partnerships and what
That's
already
right.
is available, and if there are any other funding opportunities.
I actually had that, yeah.
So I think we have sort of a two-part thing, right?
Agreed.
Because one way or the other, we want this to be able to go ahead if it's feasible. Councillor Maychak.
Through you, Madam Chair, is there an opportunity for Mr. Crosby or somebody from the committee to come forward and just make a short presentation as to their work and give some background, or is that not possible?
Well, that might be a way of investigating what's going on, and that decision could be made. It always is a possibility. But it might be sufficient when the investigation is being done to get that information about how far along in the project they are, whether any agreements have been signed with residents, because he seems to think that he has something in place already. So that's the kind of stuff we need to know more about, I think.
So, Madam Mayor, if I may, I'll, through you to Councilor Maychak, I'll reach out to Rob over the next few days to let him know what the decision of council tonight is, and see if he'd be able to, and if he's available to come and speak. I'm sure he's not a shy guy. He has no problem standing up and speaking. I'm sure he would speak on behalf
So
of it.
I will caution that, and I will say, don't tell him that we discussed it, and
Okay.
that we're going to look into it further, and that the
Have him
CAO
reach
or
out-
some staff member will
We'll
be
reach out to
reaching
him more appropriate, absolutely.
And that way,
Give him
if
a
staff
heads
is
up.
doing that, he can have a heads up, he can know that it
Okay.
was discussed, that we've done nothing about it, but we haven't let it drop.
There's a good chance he's watching later tonight,
He may be.
so
He
he
may
might
be
be
very
well
well
aware.
watching.
But,
Yeah.
okay, absolutely.
Okay. Any further discussion on this topic? Did we get a seconder? If we do. Councillor Chichop?
We didn't really have a mover.
We have a mover, we need a seconder for the other, no. So we had a mover and a seconder to get it on the floor. Then we have a mover, you were going to be the mover of this new resolution. You. But we need a seconder for that. Okay, so we can reverse that. Okay. Because there were two separate things, right? One was to look at a new item of business. The second is to deal with the new item of business.
Through the mayor to the rest of council, the resolution I have currently is that administration be directed to return to the next corporate services meeting with further funding opportunities and information regarding the Trees for All project.
Okay, so we're good with that? Everybody's good with that? Okay, do you have that ready enough to go for a vote? Okay, so that should come up as a vote. It's in front of you, it should be in front of you if your machine hasn't gone to sleep. Okay. And there are no confidential matters after that also carried. So it takes us to bylaws, and Councillor Trombetta, last but not least, you have the bylaws.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move by myself that leave be granted to introduce bylaws 2025-07, 2025-08, 2025-09, 2025-10, and 2025-11, and that the same shall be considered to be read a first, second, and third time with one reading, and are hereby adopted. And that the mayor and clerk be hereby authorized to sign the affixed corporate seal thereto, any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding.
Okay, who would like to second bylaws this evening? Councillor Maychak, thank you. Okay.
Did you say Maychak or Chichak?
I said Maychak. Okay. And so that vote should be in front of you as well. Okay, and that resolution also carries. So at the hour of 8:21, I will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you.